All right. The recording software I'm using only gives me 5 minutes, unfortunately, so I'm going to get right into it. You can look over the PowerPoint slides in more detail, and also feel free to talk with me at all if you have any questions about this area. But with that, I'm going to get right into my presentation. A brief analysis, we should know what the elements of literature before modernism, which is what I'm analyzing, are. These things that I've noted apply to all the subgenres and periods. There's a central humanity to it all. A protagonist faces events or situations with tensions and works to resolve them or responds to them. And that is kind of the focus of literature before modernism, is people interacting with the world in coherent and intelligible ways. This is true of all the literature of the time. I'll be looking at Edgar Allan Poe since he's related to my main topic. Poe wrote Gothic horror. This was horror literature focused on things like phantoms and monsters, mysteries, murder, guilt. These were common motifs, and it was from the Romantic era. In The Cask of Amontillado, which we read, a man commits a horrifying crime and at the end finds himself haunted by his actions and perhaps the ghost of the man he has killed, or at least the psychological ghost of the man he has killed. All of this comes from the Romantic sensibility of emphasis not necessarily on strict realism, but on the importance of humanity, on human experience, on perception, things like this. Modernism, as we studied, is a reaction against all of this. Because of World War I and other generational traumas, modernists reject God, objective morality, the importance of humanity. There's an ethos of disillusionment that's throughout all of modernist literature. A Farewell to Arms is a great example of this if you've read the book. The main character finds himself surrounded by events and occurrences largely outside of his control and essentially just does his best to kind of float through them or face them, but to little avail. Pulp literature is also something a good backdrop is required for. The steam press allows fast printing of materials, so serialized magazines printing on low quality wood pulp paper, pulp magazines, are prevalent from the 1890s to the 1950s. Astounding stories and weird tales are the main examples of this. They often have mystery, adventure, action, horror, hard sci fi, fantasy, genres like this. One of the currently most well known pulp authors was H.P. Lovecraft. Lovecraft frequently published in Weird Tales, but also in other magazines. He never experienced great success, died poor of cancer at age 41. Estimates say that he also wrote over 100,000 letters in his time. We have many of these, and he was a poet, but he's mainly known for inventing and propagating a genre called cosmic horror. It's a rejection of the old norms of sort of the Poe style horror. Common motifs are reality breaking and the laws of reality breaking, men being young, insignificant, and unable to comprehend the events taking place, ancient cosmic beings of immense power, sort of turning men to madness and warping their perceptions of things. The Call of Cthulhu is a great example of this. In the story, the protagonist finds himself driven to madness because of the sheer vastness and incomprehensibility of the horrifying surroundings and of the creature known as Cthulhu. So, this new horror, this cosmic horror, does not focus on the moral choices of people, but pits them against hopeless odds and situations outside of their control. And this ties directly into modernism and the modernist ethos. H.P. Lovecraft's characters are simply grappling with an incomprehensible and horrifying reality, and even their sense of reality is constantly shifting, it's twisted, it's sort of broken down into its parts and manipulated. The vast and uncaring universe of modernism and the detachment of man from reality are present in pulp horror, even though it was often viewed as lowbrow. And pulp horror, I would argue, does not just imitate modernist literature, but its fantastic setting leads to some of the themes of modernism, like madness, incomprehensibility, and insignificance, being able to be explored more fully and in sort of a more vivid way. Also, it's worth noting Lovecraft had a great impact, as you'll see, on many authors, many video games, many written works, all sorts of things like that. Stephen King called him the 20th century's greatest practitioner of the horror tale. And it looks like I'm about out of time. I hope this is sufficient, and I hope you can see that pulp horror, although common entertainment, is actually very key to understanding modernist